Good afternoon, everyone. I'm starting my slide presentation. The topic of the webinar is Role of Nutrition in Cancer. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Richa Tiwari. I'm working as Senior Clinical Nutritionist at Balco Medical Center. This is a 170-bedded cancer hospital, and we are dealing specially with the all kind of cancer. So I begin my slides. Everybody know what is cancer. So I just like to tell you that cancer is a disease in which the body cells they grow, which are uncontrollable, and they spread to the other parts of the body. Cancer is a genetic disorder which are being caused by the changes in the genes, and these genetic changes are because of the errors that happens in our cells. These changes happens because of the changes in the DNA that has been caused by the environmental factors such as the tobacco or the ultraviolet rays of the suns, and sometimes the cancer is also inherited from our parents. So the if genes are inherited, then it also lead to the cancer. Next slide. Um, there are basically more than 100 type of cancer, but very simply we divide cancer into two main categories. One is the hematological cancer, which includes the blood cancer, and they are further divided into leukemias, lymphomas, and multiple myelomas. Whereas the solid tumors are the tumors which are found in body organs or the tissues, and the common examples are the breast cancer, the prostate, lung, and the colorectal cancer. Now, what is the role of cancer and nutrition? So, for all the cancer patients, a good nutrition is very important because most of the patients are either malnourished or they become malnourished because of the so many restrictions which they are following on their own, or they have been advised to do so. So, therefore, a dietitian is very important in the healthcare team who can prescribe what kind of diet and what kind of food to be taken during the treatment and after the treatment, because while a patient is going under the treatment has so many side effects. So there are two main problems which the cancer patient feels, and that is the anorexia and the cachexia. So now I like to tell you about something about the cachexia. It is the loss of the body weight and the muscles, and that weakness occur in patient with cancer or other chronic diseases. The figure one shows a cachexic person. So you can see how malnourished that person is. Whereas the other problem is the anorexia. The patient doesn't want to eat. It happened because of the treatment also, the side effect of the chemotherapy or the radiation, or they have done so many restrictions that they doesn't feel to eat. So you can see the figure two, the patient, the girl, she's when she's seeing herself in the mirror, she's looking very healthy, but actually she's a quite malnourished kind of person. We all can see. So here comes the roles of the dietitian. That the dietitian has to prescribe a good, healthy, balanced diet. And when you are working with cancer patient, please forget this, that everybody needs a neutropenic diet. No, everybody doesn't need a neutropenic diet. So when you are working with cancer patient, you are going to see that patient are anorexic, they are having nausea, they are having vomiting, they have dry mouth, and so one kind of diet cannot be applicable to every patient. Therefore, every patient of a cancer doesn't require a neutropenic diet. If your WBC counts are getting low, you are having fever, and your doctor says that you follow neutropenic care, then you need to have neutropenic diet. But when you are having a cancer and you are going a surgery, for suppose for a breast cancer surgery, you are going for an MRM, it doesn't require the neutropenic diet. You require the healthy, balanced diet. So if a patient is admitted for an MRM surgery, pre-oply the patient will be either on liquids or on the soft diet, and before the surgery, like from midnight onwards, the doctor would advise liquid diet. Some people, some doctors, they advise to have midnight NPO, and after surgery you start with your liquid diet, which is well tolerated, then you continue soft and normal diet, and then patient can be discharged. While the patient is discharged, you need to counsel the patient that she or has to take a well balanced diet, and she need to regularly monitor her weight, because surgery like MRN or unnectomy people tends to put on weight. Therefore, they need to be very careful regarding their weight. So these are the various problems that patients are dealing. Therefore, when a patient is having vomiting kind of feeling, then you need to prescribe a soft or a liquid kind of diet. When you have a dry mouth condition, then you need to have some kind of sauces or liquidy food item more often to be taken in the diet for better counteract of your symptoms. So similarly, if you have lactose intolerance, then you need to avoid milk.
Ma'am, you are on mute. Can you unmute? Richa, ma'am, can you hear me? Neha, can you call ma'am and tell? Hello.
Oh,
Yes, Richa, ma'am. Okay, now we can hear you, ma'am. Ma'am, you'll have to repeat this slide because you went on mute in between.
okay. So
Yeah.
I like to just repeat about the dietary guidelines of the cancer patient. Uh, that they need to have high protein diet and high calorie diet. The proteins you can add the vegetable, the plant based protein also, and also the animal protein. The only protein that you need to restrict is the your red meat or your organ meat, which are not supposed to be taken during your cancer treatment or even after your cancer treatment. The extra protein can be added by also by the protein fortified milk. And for your if you are dealing with nausea, have your bland and soft and easily digestible food rather than having heavy meals. In case of vomiting, which is generally after your chemotherapy session or after your radiotherapy session, you need not drink until your vomiting stop, or you drink the clear liquid in small amount. In case of dry mouth, you need to sip water throughout the day and eat and food which have a little salty, tart, sweet kind of taste, such as lemonade, or you can help candies you can take, which will help you to make more saliva. Uh, uh, Also, you need to eat food very slowly, which so that you can easily chew that, and you can also prefer milkshake, scrambled egg, oatmeal for better treatment and your health. Then avoid raw food item and always cook the food till it is soft and tender. In case of lactose intolerance, you have to avoid milk, but you can take curd, buttermilk, and low lactose milk products. All kind of vegetables and fruits can be taken. Generally prefer the seasonal fruits and vegetable. You need not to go after a certain kind of fruits which you think that it will help you in raising your hemoglobin level. It is better to take what is seasonally available because they are low in pesticide level also, and you'll get the better taste, because seasonal fruits and vegetables, they have better taste when they are taken in the season. And if you have constipation kind of problem, then you need to add a good amount of fiber to your diet. So the next slide says the nutrition supplement requirements. So nutrition supplements are required for the cancer patient, and anybody who is on who is dealing with oral cancer, especially they are taking radiotherapy or the chemotherapy session, and they are on rice tube feeding or NJ feeding, they require a good amount of protein. So the commercial protein supplements are the need of the hour. But when you talk about the antioxidants and such kinds of multivitamin, then you need to talk to your doctor and oncologist. If they prefer, then only you take this, because there are many doctors or oncologists which doesn't allow us to prescribe any multivitamins. Therefore, first discuss with your oncologist, then only you prescribe a multivitamins, because in one of the studies it has proven that vitamin B and beta carotene reduces the toxicity of radiotherapy, but they have shown a risk of lung and stomach and prostate colorectal adenomas. Similarly, with antioxidant, the data is been there, but it is not up to that of higher level. So more studies have to be done, and especially with the Indian scenarios, we have to do studies. Then only we need to prescribe that to our patient, because our patient and foreign patients are very different. Therefore, I feel that personally we should do a study, after which we should provide prescribe any supplements. Then, what is the benefit of surgical nutrition in surgical cancer patient? For surgeries, you need to have a good nutrition. It will help in wound healing. It will allow patient to feel much better, and the hospital days will also be less as compared to if you don't have a good amount of, if you're not taking a good diet or your intake is poor. So there are a few recommendations, and these are from the Eastman guidelines. That is, pre-operative fasting is necessary. So if the patient doesn't have any risk of aspiration, then and if the doctor allow, then they can also have liquids before 2 hours before their anesthesia. So basically, it is the ERAS protocol that many oncologists they follow, or the surgeons they follow. So if in your hospital, if you can talk to your oncologist and they are ready, so you can also allow clear liquids before 2 hours of the anesthesia. Then the post-operative interruption of the oral nutrition intake is necessary after the surgery. So the recommendation says that oral nutrition should be continued without any interruption. But if you feel and if you see that patient is not well, he is having nausea or vomiting, then it is better to stop the diet, and at least for 1 or 2 hours, and then start with clear liquid. If patient is able to tolerate, then you start with progress with your diet, and progress from clear liquids to liquid, and then to the soft diet. Similarly, in case of RT feeding, if it is better to allow RT feeding after 24 hours, and you start initially with this with small amount, and then you increase it according to the patient's uh, acceptance level. Uh, then why when a nutrition assessment is required or is needed in surgical patients? So it is recommended to do a detailed nutrition assessment. Many a time we are only taking height, weight, and BMI, and thinking that the nutrition assessment is complete. No, the nutrition assessment is not complete. It is not merely on the basis of height and weight. You have to also take clinical history of the patient. You need to know that what was the weight before 1 month or 6 months before. So you need to follow the standard scored patient generated assessment form. I feel it is much better nutrition assessment form. So recommended is to do the assessment before the surgery and after the surgery, and then you can get to know that what amount of calories in protein you should prescribe, and what amount of calorie in protein your patient is able to tolerate. During your perioperative nutrition therapy, it is indicated that only the malnutrition patient or the nutrition risk patient, they require intensive nutrition. And if your oral and enteral nutrition are not met, then the combination of parenteral nutrition is also recommended along with your enteral nutrition. Then enteral nutrition, and what is the timing of the PM? If the patient is not able to take orally and enterally, then the parenteral nutrition is recommended, and it is recommended to take 3-bag chamber instead of the multi-bottle system. So again, you need to talk to your doctor or your surgeon to start with your parenteral nutrition, which is a 3-chamber bag. And the parenteral glutamine supplementation may be also considered for malnourished patients who are exclusively on parenteral nutrition. So, the Eastman guideline also says that oral glutamine is necessary or not. So, actually, there is no clear recommendation for supplementation of oral glutamine. Then, what is the role of the arginine, IV, or EN alone? So, there is also no clear recommendation. Therefore, I am repeating my words that we need to, the Indian dietitians, the Indian doctors, we need to do more research on that, and then we need to recommend this for our patients, because the foreign patients are different from the Indian patients. Then, what is the indication for supplementing IV omega-3 fatty acids? So, the recommendation says that omega-3 fatty acids should be considered only in patients who cannot be adequately fed enterally, and therefore they require parenteral nutrition. Next slide. Is there an indication of any special enteral formula enriched with amino acids? So for post-operative administration, they require immunonutrients like arginine, omega-3, nucleotide, and it should be given for, especially for the malnourished, not for everybody, but who are very severely malnourished, they require. Then which formula should be preferred? So this is a debatable topic. Everybody prefer commercial supplements because they're easy to prepare. They have you will get good amount of protein. There is no tube clogging, so preferred formula. But with the Indian scenario, where most of the hospital, like all the big hospitals, they are after the commercial formulas. But in 2-tier cities, in 3-tier cities, still on colleges, the surgeons, they still prefer to have your kitchen base or the amalgamation of either both of the feeding. So, in my opinion, commercial should be preferred, but still, if you can maintain your hygiene level, you can still prefer the kitchen formula along with the commercial, because patient satisfaction is also important. What we do here is when we have a patient on NG tube feeding, on RT tube feeding, we go and also take their feedback. And what feedback we receive is that patient feel that that when we are giving them the commercial formula, sometimes they feel they have too much acidity, sometimes they feel they have vomiting tendency, sometimes they feel when the commercial formula is mixed with the milk, they feel they get more cough. So I know these are certain myth, but they are prevailing. And when you work in a corporate hospital, you need to take care of even of the RT feed patients. So that is why we take mixture of both the feeding. We prescribe the commercial formula and also the kitchen made formula. When the patient is discharged, we give them the diet chart, which is also the amalgamation of both kind of formulas. So the homemade diet are to be preferred better in home care setting, but in hospital it can also be done if the hygiene and sanitation level can be maintained. So, so the and again I like to repeat that tube feeding after the surgery should be started after 24 hours, and to start it with 20 ml per hour or what your doctor prescribes. Generally in our hospital we start with 50 ml per hour, and then we increase it to 100 to 150 to 200 ml. Sometimes patient they like to take more, then we also prescribe till 300 to 350 ml. With like we are discussing with our oncologists, if they are ready, then we also increase the amount. So with this, I come to the end of this slide.